Welcome back. Now this is the second part to the exact same tiny room simulator that I'm doing Bolt. I'm just doing it in C#. So I've done some prep from the previous tutorial, so I'm going to talk that through. I just made a duplicate of my prefab bed double base. All we did was on the parent we added a collider that's just kind of encompasses the bed. We turned is trigger on. And if we go to the rigid body, I set the rigid body and is kinematic to be true and just continuous speculative. So I get a better calculation out of my rigid body. And all I did was take the original model, duplicate it twice, called one overlapped and the other one not overlapped. Let me just show you what they look like. The overlapped one, I created a material that's red with a little bit of transparency. So it's a red, completely red material with a little bit of alpha. And for the green one, the exact same thing for the not overlapped, so that we can activate and deactivate these. So by default, I'm going to turn all of them off right now. Off, that's on. What the hell? And I'm going to create a script that's going to go onto the actual bed base. So the concept for this tutorial is a very simple introduction to kind of a simulator program where you can select objects from menus, drop them into the world, and I'm trying to keep it down to 3 scripts. We're going to have the manager that manages this placement and the moving and the rotation of the objects, a UI button that's going to allocate what you're going to instantiate in the world, and the third one is going to be the button that we can have all sorts of functionality on. So it's going to tell us what layers it can raycast to. It's going to be able to tell us if it's a light, maybe it has an on and off switch, a TV can play something on the screen, that kind of thing. So we want to do that. So I'm going to go to my scripts folder, and in my C# folder, I'm going to right click and create a new script. Let's call this one prefab, because it's going to be assigned to the prefab. Might as well. What just happened? Delete. Let's try that again. Create a script, C#. Okay, this has been completely full of crap. Let's try this one more time. Create C# script. Do not touch anything. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we'll rename it after the fact. So I'm just going to name it now. Call this prefab. Let's just call it prefab base. There we go. And it's going to give us an error because the name of the script and the name of the actual class are different. So I'm going to open it up in Visual Studio Code and just quickly paste that prefab base name that I created earlier on so that everything is above board. Okay, so I'm just going to assign the script. Easiest way is to either just drag it across here or drag it onto the actual object in the hierarchy. Now that the script is assigned, we can open up the script and we're going to do a few things. Okay, so first thing, we do not need the start or the update function. I'm going to remove those, and we're going to start by we need a reference to the original model, the overlapped model, and the not overlapped model. So let's do that. Serialized field. I'm going to make this a game object, and we'll call this original. Do the same thing, serialized field, game object. This one's going to be called overlapped. Next one is serialized field, game object, not overlapped. I know the naming could be better, but it's okay. So I have the reference to all these different models, so I can activate and deactivate them. Now, I need to create a variable on the, I'm going to click here, I'm going to look for my tiny manager script. And in here, I need to make a variable that is going to be I'm going to keep all my balls together, but let's just put it at the bottom for now. I'm going to make this a public bool. And this one's going to be is overlapping. So we want, and currently by default, we want it to be set to false. So is overlapping is equal to false. So I want to know if it's overlapping because I need to speak to the script and tell it that it is currently overlapping. Okay, let's go back to our prefab base, and there's one more variable that this can be a private variable. It's going to be a bool, and let's just call this object has, wait, there we go, that's a question. Has object been dropped? By default, we're going to set that to false again. So now that we have all the variables we're going to need for this time being, I'm going to say on trigger stay. So when we're in the trigger and we're currently staying, we're going to want to say, because so if we're colliding something, we need to go and say the overlapped object dot set active is equal to true. Please put the semicolon outside. So overlapped object is set to true, and just to be safe, we're going to say the not overlapped object dot set active is going to be false. So we're turning the one on and the other one off. On, off the whole time. And then we need to tell the tiny room manager dot instance dot is overlapping is equal to true, because we are currently overlapping something. Just so that when we try to drop the object into the world, we need to ask, can we? Are we currently overlapping something or are we not? So we need to do that. That's all we do on that side. So now we're going to go on trigger exit. And we're going to copy all of these again, paste them in here. I'm going to set this one to be false, set this one to be true, and set this one to be false, because we're no longer overlapping. Okay, so that should do the overlapping script. That should do everything that needs to be done in the code. So we can go and see if this works. We're going to go to Unity, allow the script to compile so we can assign all the variables. So we're going to assign the original one to original, overlapped to overlapped, and not overlapped to not overlapped. So let's test if this works. Let's create the bed. Notice how it's green, red, green, red, green, red. So it's working. But we can still, again, we can drop it anywhere, even though it's green or red, we can drop it anywhere we want. So that's where we need to go back to our script, go to our prefab tiny room manager, and over here where we're saying is placing true, is the raycast hit, and so we'll just do it before this physics over here, so we keep all our balls together. We're going to go and is overlapping, and then go and again. So we're asking if all of this is true. So now, if you want to know if is overlapping is negative, we're going to do exclamation. I got too many ands. What the hell? Okay, so all we're asking is if placing is true and is overlapping is false, and the physics raycast comes back as true, then we can actually drop the object. If not, ignore it. Leave it alone. So we're going to go again back to here, and we're going to see if we can drop the object now that we've done that. I click on bed. I broke it. See what I've done. Okay, we can no longer raycast. So let's just see what I've done here. Is placing true and is overlapping false. I'm putting it in the wrong place. What a dumbass. So let me remove this and leave that the way it was. And we're going to add it to the end over here. It's only when we're actually dropping that we need to check if the input is true and is placing is true and overlapping is false. Then we can actually place the object. Sorry, it's a little late on this side and I'm been working all day, so I'm making stupid mistakes. So let's check. So that's cool. If I'm there, I can't actually drop the object. Notice I'm clicking away like a mad person, but the moment it goes green, I can drop it. So here's the other issue. When I drop the object, I don't want it to be green. I want to use the original mesh that's here, not the overlapped mesh or the not overlapped mesh. I want to drop the correct mesh. So we are going to do all of this inside of the prefab base. We are going to create a custom variable down here. We're going to go in. It needs to be public, void, and we're going to say when object is dropped. You do not need to have your functions have such long names. I'm just doing it so that it's very descriptive, and for learning it's just easy to say, okay, this is when the object is dropped. When the object is dropped, I want to say not overlapped is equal to dot set active is equal to false, and I want to turn on original dot set active to true. So we're turning whatever. In my brain, the way it works is because it's not overlapping anything. This is the model I should be disabling, and this is the one I want to re-enable. So all I have to do now is actually fire off that event in the Tiny Room Manager. Thank goodness we have a reference to the currently selected object. So when we click this button, we're going to say currently selected object dot, and we're going to type get component, and we're going to reference the script called prefab. We're going to go get dot, and then we're going to say when object has been dropped. We're going to call that event inside of that script. So we're calling the object, we're getting the component, which is this prefab script, and we're saying when object is dropped, we're going to fire off that event, and it should drop the correct model. So we can go back to Unity again. I'm going to hit play, and let's see if this works. We're going to click the bed button, move it around, click here when it goes green, and now I've dropped the object. That is it. That is how that works. So now we can no longer drop objects on top of other ones or into the walls when you think like that. So what I want to do is stage 2 of this video is to allow me to be able to rotate the object. So while I'm moving it around, I want to be able to rotate the object. So I'm going to go and, where should I put it? Let me just put it by the serialized fields. So this is going to be a serialized field. It's going to be a float. I'm going to call this rotation speed. Set that by default to 5. So it's going to be called rotation speed because that's how fast I'm going to rotate something. And we're going to just look for it in the update. So I'm just going to add it in the update here. Just make some spaces between the different if statements. I'm going to go if placing is true and now this is going to be where we go input dot get access raw, because I want the raw value between 0 and 1 or 0 and -1. So I don't want any incremental values. I want a completely pure value. So if I move my mouse right, it's going to be 1. If I move my mouse left, it's going to be -1. If I don't move my mouse, it's going to be 0. So that we need the name of the axis. So it's going to be in quotation marks, mouse space X uppercase. Is it quotation marks or do we not need? Let me just double check this. Sorry about this. Definitely quotations marks. Oh, operator over bool. Interesting, but that should... Oh, what we'll do this. We're going to say if it's not equal to 0. Okay, so if it's not equal to 0 and we're getting a mouse input and placing is true, we're then going to rotate the object. And remember, it is the currently selected object dot transform dot rotate. We're using the rotate because it allows us to rotate. It almost does like an animation kind of rotate. So we're going to, in here, we're going to rotate based on the following. We're going to rotate the object only in the X by a certain amount. So I need to go and create a new vector 3. Wow, I'm typing so many different randoms. New vector 3. And I don't care about the X. I care about the Y, which is going to be my rotation speed multiplied by my input. So my input... Oh, this is wrong. Let me grab that by this value here. Sorry, I'm on a roll today for making stupid mistakes. Okay, so and then it's going to be comma 0 because I don't care about the Z. Okay, that should do it. We're going to put a semicolon at the end. We're going to still have this area because actually what I wanted to ask is if I have my right mouse button down. So input dot get mouse button down. Which mouse button is it? It's 1. So if my right mouse button is down and placing is true, then I'm going to rotate this by a vector 3. Should say new vector 3. My word, today is a day of mistakes. There we go. So what we're going to do now to show you the first issue and then show you that this works is we're transforming the currently selected object. So let's go back to Unity and see what happens. So the idea is that when I press the button, I want to be, it needs to follow my cursor. When I hold down right mouse button and I move, it should rotate, but it's not. We'll see in a moment why it's not working, but we're still able to close. Let me just see what I've done wrong with the code. Oh, wrong button. No, right button, get mouse button, not down, just get mouse button. My apologies again. Mistakes all over the place. So let's just do it again. Start it. Place the object, rotate. Notice how it is rotating the bed, but it's also moving. So I want to say that if I'm if my right mouse button is down, please stop moving and just rotate the object. And then I can release the mouse button and then it stops rotating. But it would really be helpful if I can actually not move and rotate at the same time. So we're going to go back to the code here. And in this here, where we're actually doing the placing, we're going to double check to see if I'm going to copy this input.get mouse button down. I'm just going to put it right at the end here. We're going to go and exclamation that. So what we're saying is if that button isn't down, we can move it. But if it is down, we can't. No, we can no longer move the object and rotate at the same time. Let's try this again. It's a little bit glitchy, but there we go. So now I can rotate. Boop, boop. I can move it around, rotate, move it around, rotate, move it around, and just drop it. So now the rotation is working. There's a few things that I want to change as far as like the way it snaps to the cursor really quickly. I want to fix all of that, but that's it for this video. So we added overlapping detection using triggers. We changed, all we did is enable and disable these objects based on what we needed. So if it was overlapping something, it would show this object. If it's not overlapping, it would show this object. And then when we drop the object, it shows this one. So all of that is in place, and we're now able to use the right mouse button to rotate. Remember, you can change this input. So it doesn't have to be a mouse button, and we don't need to be getting an input access over here. We can change it simply by maybe pressing Q to rotate to the left, E to rotate to the right. It is up to you how you want to set this up. I just want to keep this whole thing on basically the mouse. So left mouse button is to drop, right mouse button is to rotate, and the middle mouse button is to delete an object. So I want to use select, rotate, and delete all on the same device on the mouse, so we can keep it nice and clean. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching the video. In the next video, we're going to go into reselecting objects, deselecting buttons that we have clicked, and also deleting objects. We just want to be able to remove anything that's currently there. And that's it. So we've now got all three scripts that we need: the UI button, the Tiny Room Manager, and the prefab base. With all of these three scripts, we should be able to completely finish this project to what we need. We might need a few here and there if we want to do anything fancy, but outside of that, we should be okay with these three scripts. Thank you so much, and see you again next time.